Hey guys, before this episode that you're about to listen to, I just want to let you know that we recorded this about 3 weeks ago. So if there's any big Spider-Man news that we didn't talk about that just came out recently, that's why. But before we get into all the fun stuff with John and Andrew, I also wanted to let you guys know of a couple things. The first is a huge thank you to everyone who listened. You guys pushed us over to the best season we've ever had. So we want to say thank you. If you message us at Delphin Pod on any of our social media, we will mail you a postcard. That's right. It's not an email. It's not something cheap and takes 5 seconds. We're going to mail you a physical postcard in the mail. So if you have a mailing address and you want one, just message us on at DelphinPod on all social media. It's just a way for us to say thank you for everyone who's been listening. If you like the podcast, definitely review it on Stitcher or on iTunes or on both. Review it everywhere you can. That's how new people find the podcast. You can also go to patreon.com/DelphinPod and support the pod. We have exclusive stuff there. We even recorded a special Countdown to Infinity version for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. If you guys like that animated film, it's so good, and we talk about it on Patreon. So there's an exclusive video episode there. What else? Oh, if anyone is going to do the MCU marathon, the 50-something hour-long 2-day thing, let us know. Some of you guys are doing it from home, which is awesome. If any of you guys are going to the theater, let us know. We'll definitely repost you. And if you're trying, or if there's someone who doesn't listen to these podcasts or watch the MCU stuff, that'd be really, really cool. Cool. Let's see. Last thing is for Endgame. This is going to be our release schedule. So that Thursday or that Friday, a spoiler-free review episode will come out, and then on Monday, a full spoilery Endgame episode will come out. But without further ado, here's this week's episode.
Woo! Everybody good?
Call me Spider-Man!
Okay, Spider-Man! Don't flip! Yeah!
Not bad!
Welcome to Countdown to Infinity, another week and another week closer to Endgame. So if this is your very first episode, we watched every single Marvel Cinematic Universe movie from Iron Man all the way up to Captain Marvel. And we also talk about every single superhero. So you'll see a lot of episodes, but you can either watch all the movies in a row if you're binging them, that's in season 1, or if you just want a refresher on every character, that's this season, season 2. And this week we're talking about I'll give you a clue. Oh, I already said spider.
Yeah,
Let me give you a clue. It's a spider-based...
Spider Ham. It's an arachnid hero.
What are some other arachnids other than spiders? You guys know?
Nope.
Scorpion.
Is it really?
Centipede.
Centipede has 100 legs.
Yeah. What's a millipede? How many is that?
Million peas.
A million legs? My name's Emmanuel.
I'm Andrew.
Hey, I'm John.
And yeah, this week we're talking about Spider-Man, some of people's favorites.
Also, I feel like he's the MCU hero with the most baggage cinematically. Because he's the only hero in this that has previous franchises. Like all the other MCU heroes, they started there.
Yeah, Spider-Man, there are a lot of reiterate. Again, we're only going to talk about the Marvel Cinematic Universe Tom Holland version, but it's hard to talk about it without
talking about the other movie Spider-Man.
Yeah, there's a couple other people that have played Spider-Man. We talked about Spider-Verse as well on a Patreon exclusive episode.
Yeah.
But we can start at, I guess at the start of the 2000s, that version, because I'm sure there's Spider-Man before that.
Right.
Briefly here. But Sam Raimi really broke a lot of the superhero mold for box office films with his Spider-Man series. And my favorite, Spider-Man 3, when he dances and sings. Emo Spider-Man. I'm just kidding.
James Brown is pretty awesome.
Even the casting was really good. I think it was really good. I can't remember anyone's names anymore.
Maguire, and Kirsten Dunst, and
okay,
legendary movies basically. Kirsten Dunst, J.K. Simmons, was got fame. He was probably more or less famous before that, but I think the Jameson character that he played, because he played J. Jonah Jameson, the editor of the Daily Bugle,
and those movies. Yeah, sorry. And who played Green Goblin again?
Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe, really
walked
good.
through-
Dafoe.
Yeah.
Scary.
So you had some you had some Spider-Man-esque villains there. You had
God, I
like,
feel bad that I didn't remember his name.
Green Goblin.
Florida Project.
You have Doc Ock, who's played by Alfred Molina in the second movie.
Really
Topher
good.
Grace as Venom.
Ooh,
Yeah, you
okay.
have Topher Grace's Venom and
Interesting.
And Thomas Hayden Church
as the
Sandman.
James Franco as Green Goblin 6.
Some
the
people
sequel.
love, and they have a really strong connection to those Spider-Man movies.
To the trilogy, right? The original
And
trilogy.
they found a really humongous audience. And if I'm not mistaken, adjusted for inflation, maybe still the highest grossing Spider-Man movies. Because
Probably,
those
yeah.
films were like blockbuster.
They were event movies.
Oh, yeah.
The superhero movies at the time weren't like, I guess they started to compete with each other when the first Spider-Man movie came out. So after that, you got Ghost Rider, you had, Fantastic
Nicolas
Four.
Cage.
You had Fantastic Four, you had you had Batman Begins, you had Jonah Hex, you had all these movies that are just being a boom from from what just happened on the from those original like X-Men and Spider-Man movies. X-Men I think was the other competitor to Spider-Man.
Yeah, and
At the time.
And I'm going to go through here and tell you guys what, if we adjusted for inflation, what the grosses are for these Spider-Man movies worldwide. Unadjusted. What? So, well, I'll just do this. So, worldwide, Spider-Man. Shit. Where the fuck? I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's like,
Me so sorry. So, adjusted for inflation, Spider-Man, the first one, made the most. Spider-Man 2 and then Spider-Man 3. So yeah, those three movies adjusted for inflation were they're still the highest grossing Spider-Man movies worldwide, not adjusted. Spider-Man 3 is the highest grossing, $890 million, and then Spider-Man Homecoming $880 million. So pretty
really?
close.
That's
but
crazy. Yeah.
That's worldwide, then that's unadjusted for inflation. Guys, let's talk about inflation. What are your thoughts about the strength of the US dollar?
No comment.
Ooh, Andrew has he knows a lot of secrets.
I know I like to play it safe.
Yeah, buy gold is what he's telling you.
Yep.
And for 3 payments of $19.99, we can give you this limited
America's Diamond. So just kidding.
the official diamond provider for Delphin Pines.
While we're talking about the cinematic history, and we just want to touch upon this a little briefly of Spider-Man franchise, a rebooted one after the Raimi.
They didn't wait that long either.
They did not. I think there was also an interview with Raimi where he said like he couldn't crack Spider-Man 4 because originally there was supposed to be a Spider-Man 4, and Raimi didn't want to. It's not that he didn't want to. He just couldn't really crack the story. He wanted more time.
Yeah.
And the studio was like, no, we need to make this date. And so Raimi was dropping out, and he said like, you can do your reboot, which you were planning anyway, because apparently the studio was still planning an inevitable like reboot
At
after
some
that.
point.
Yeah.
Well, one of the biggest things about Spider-Man 3 is it did have kind of a natural resolution.
It did actually.
The
Like
end.
the way
It was
you,
a finale.
when you
type
watch the
movie.
movies together now, like back to back, there are some like it does feel like it's an ending, like a definitive ending to
Yeah.
it. Even though some storylines were going to continue, like I think in Spider-Man 4, Peter was set to meet Felicia Hardy, who was going to be played by Anne Hathaway.
The cat. Another
Catwoman.
cat.
No, the Black Cat, actually.
Yeah.
That's the name of the character, Felicia Hardy. But she was going to be evolved in that movie as the Vulture S, because John Malkovich signed on to play the Vulture
Cool.
in that movie. Obviously, that project never came to light. And we got The Amazing Spider-Man, directed by Mark Webb, with
From
the
500 Days of Summer.
500 Days of Summer. Yeah,
And
Indie-
these
Indie
movies
gem.
were that vibe. In a way.
They totally were. Some
Really
parts.
angsty.
These movies kind of had like Amazing Spider-Man 1, and it did have a sequel, Amazing Spider-Man 2.
I liked Amazing Spider-Man 1. I really did.
Amazing Spider-Man 1 is actually not bad of a movie. It's really cool.
Andrew Garfield did a good job as
Right, yeah.
a youthful Spider-Man.
Yeah, and everybody, it's kind of different. I mean, it's not different enough to be like groundbreaking because it was kind of almost like a little similar.
It's updated, but yeah, it's very
similar to
yeah.
the Raimi first Raimi movie. Just obviously
with younger actors,
just younger actors really, and
better sequences, I'd say,
or
like newer sequences.
Better. I would say better sequences. There's the fight. There's a moment where he fights the lizard, which is the main villain, in the sewers and in the classroom, or like in a school, in a high school. And those are pretty cool sequences. I think the ending kind
Stan Lee has a cameo in all those, huh?
yeah, he does.
That's cool.
So that Spider-Man franchise was okay. It had its moments, but apparently, it missed the mark for some people, and it apparently missed the mark for the box office because
Yeah, it had a really tough job though, because those Spider-Man movies, the Sam Raimi trilogy, those were
still fresh, very fresh in
really
people's
fresh.
heads. Yeah.
And at that point, they were one of the few superhero movies coming out. And by the time Amazing Spider-Man was out, there were already more. And if I'm not mistaken, the Marvel Cinematic Universe was already around at that time.
I think 2012 when the first Spider-Man. When was like the first Amazing Spider-Man came out in 2012, right?
Yeah.
There was
Avengers. Avengers
was already out. Yeah.
So it's weird to think that they were ever really going to match the success of the Raimi films because they weren't the only superhero movies in town.
Right, and that by that point, people were actually, they were already used to crossovers because like the Avengers that just came out.
And you have to think too that it's not saying that there were never any other superhero movies around the time that Raimi's movies were, but they were not that that kind of. I mean, you had X-Men, which was a very different kind of superhero,
right?
movie.
And that was like I feel like the main competitor to Spider-Man at that point. But
Dark Knight, very different. Like that, they were still separate. They weren't all melding into one thing.
Mm-hmm. I think you just nailed it on the head there. I feel like people were just kind of. It was too soon for that to be rebooted.
Hashtag too soon.
Too soon. It was too soon for it to be rebooted. Although the cast was like really promising, and like I said, the moments in the movie where Mark Webb, like I feel like the relationship parts between like Gwen Stacy and Parker.
Gwen Stacy, played by Oscar winner
Emma Stone. Yeah, she would go on to win the Oscar. So those sequences are really cool because like they're very like it feels like Mark Webb is really good with the character stuff, and then the obligatory like studio knows that like you need to hit this sequence and hit that sequence.
Well, how unique that your star and the main love interest are actually dating in real life.
Yeah, and they started dating because of that. And
at the time.
But the thing is, like, Avi Arad still had.
Sorry, Andrew's currently dating Emma Stone. So
Andrew Garfield.
Oh, sorry.
I'm just kidding.
Avi Arad still had a lot of, power to, during those movies, like, because he was the original producer on the original Spider-Man movie.
Here's my big question: Andrew Garfield, is he related to Garfield the cat?
Yep. No.
Oh, okay.
I think so.
I saw him eat lasagna once.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So,
well, maybe you're onto something there.
Question.
I saw him eat a mouse.
Yeah, but for the most part, yeah, those Amazing Spider-Man movies kind of like there's a lot of unfinished stuff there because that second one ends with like the promise of a franchise and nothing ever came about.
Yeah,
way to go, Jamie Foxx.
Yeah, with
the whole
the Sinister.
lab.
You actually literally see the Sinister Six,
which was
like,
announced as
there.
a film.
Yeah, it was. Drew Goddard was set to direct it. Drew Goddard was set to direct it.
Who is it? Did he make Bright or what is
Drew Goddard?
Yeah.
He made Fast Times.
Who made Bright? You know what I'm talking about? Bright.
David Ayer.
David Ayer.
Yeah.
Okay.
David yesterday.
Sorry.
So yeah, and then after that, Marvel and Sony kind of got together to hash out a plan
because they said we need help.
Yeah, exactly. And
really need some.
So basically, some things were a deal was made, and Sony, even though the character technically belongs to Marvel, but the licensing rights are at Sony. Sony basically relicensed it back out to Marvel.
Rented him out.
So basically, Marvel is now in charge of Spider-Man, the live-action Spider-Man, creatively, and Sony gets to do the distribution and marketing and all that jazz.
And now here we are, Marvel Cinematic Universe Spider-Man, played by Tom Holland.
Mm-hmm.
An interesting. So here, let's talk about his first appearance, not in his own film, but as a
Civil War.
Really big part of Civil War's, I would say, marketing is the return of Spider-Man, or I guess the introduction of Spider-Man to the Marvel Studios.
You know what's really interesting is that
no, I don't.
The amount of time that was rebooted between
Garfield
and
the cat?
Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, the Mark Webb Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And this was the exact same, like I feel like, amount of time
since the Garfield
than the other one. Yeah, so like I feel like maybe not like the exact amount of time, but I feel like it's because we both said at the beginning of the podcast that like it was too soon. Like the Garfield one failed because it was too soon, but like the Holland one was kind of very, very soon. Also, right after. To the point where people were kind of getting pissed off. Like, I remember talking to people, like, saying that Spider-Man's going to show up in Captain America.
Well...
And people were like, is it Andrew Garfield, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, it's Tom Holland. They're like, what the fuck? Like, another one?
Yeah, I could understand how some people were, I don't want to say confused, but just like, what's happening?
And then they saw Spider-Verse, and they're like, there's 20 Spider-Man.
And it's a big thing because I remember when the
biggest
outside of Marvel, another Disney property, Star Wars, when Rogue One was announced, they did all of these, I guess, like interviews and general like polls, and a lot of people, more than half of the people, thought Rogue One was part of the main trilogy just because it said Star Wars.
Right, yeah.
So I do understand. I mean, we read and watch these things all the time, so we understand the differences.
But the general audience just sees a movie.
They may be like,
out,
oh, Spider-Man, that's the last guy, right?
Yeah, Spider-Man 6 or something. That's what they say.
Yeah, I know this movie.
Yeah.
But do you think that's part of the decision of having him be introduced in a movie that you know was going to be successful in Civil War? Because you could really taper the reactions to Spider-Man because people are already going to be coming to see all these superheroes, and Spider-Man is just a cherry on top of a cake instead of the whole cake.
Right, yeah, and I think that
I'm hungry for cake.
I think that was great on Marvel's part because Marvel definitely just like they skipped the origin story, just showed you like they gave you a very accurate looking Peter Parker because like the actors from the other movies, Maguire and Garfield, kind of looked a little older than what they were actually playing.
Like 30-year-olds in high school.
Yeah, because like Maguire looked old. Like Maguire, I think was like 28 when he filmed that first movie.
Pleasantville.
Were you just naming movies?
No, he looked. I mean, I think he was equally as old in Pleasantville, but he played a teenager type thing.
I mean, he was actually a teenager during the filming. I think of Pleasantville, possibly.
Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know how many years before that was, but he was definitely in his 20s. And he was in his late 20s when he started the first Spider-Man movie. Garfield, on the other hand, was maybe mid-20s, but again looked kind of older than what he actually was because he had just played like Eduardo Saverin in The Social Network.
Yeah,
so
a college student.
So to have Tom Holland, who's like, and Tom Holland's a not pretty old dude, but he's like in his early 20s, but he still looks like he can play like 18 because of the mannerisms and the voice, that cracky voice. I can't do it right now. I don't know why I was trying to do it. Yeah, he does like a cracky, like teenager-esque voice, which you're like kind of thinking like that's fucking Spider-Man. Like it's almost like when you watch like we've watched Spider-Man cartoons growing up. Drew and me, I guess, like not
Drew and
we, Drew and I. So we watched like Spider-Man cartoons, and that's basically like the closest you can get to like accurately portraying Spider-Man. Because I think like yeah, because like the previous two had their own quirks, and sometimes they would nail it, sometimes, but other times they wouldn't. I think Tom Holland nails every aspect of the character, and it's kind of weird how Feige just like all of it, like just knew that about this character.
Well, so we'll talk about Tom Holland, and according to Collider, so I kind of want to break down this crazy rights thing. I know it's kind of nerd stuff, but it's really cool.
It's good. Yeah.
Here we go. In 1990, it's really interesting because Sony actually owns all rights to Spider-Man, all of it. Marvel Studios have zero rights to Spider-Man. So the deal that they struck is Sony makes all of the money from all of these Spider-Man films, including Spider-Man Homecoming and the last two. Marvel Studios actually doesn't make anything from those films. Sony pays for those movies. Mm-hmm. They get all the box office. And their deal with Marvel Studios was Kevin Feige and his group got to have creative control of Tom Holland and his, I guess, the Marvel... So they get to pick the director. They get to pick all of the... all the creative stuff behind the Spider-Man movies. And in return, the only thing that Marvel Studios actually got in return was being able to use Spider-Man, Tom Holland,
with the Avengers stuff
in other
Marvel
MCU movies. And then merchandising, which is like probably $1 billion.
Which is, like I think that's where Sony's making the money off of Spider-Man in that case.
So Sony pays for, distributes,
Marvel,
and makes all of the money from these Spider-Man Homecoming, which is an MCU movie.
Yeah.
And in return, Feige gets to put Spider-Man in the Avengers and other stuff.
Right, and then they make, obviously they have the rights still for toys. So, like, they because, like, it's Marvel. It's a Marvel-owned character.
I had seen when Venom came out that there would be... maybe a connection with the MCU, but contractually that is not allowed at all. So Tom Holland can never be in a Venom film. They are not allowed to merge the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yeah,
that's kind of weird. That's really interesting
because
I feel like
were pretty interesting. But yeah, Tom Holland is not allowed to appear in any of them.
At the end of Venom, they put a Spider-Verse trailer, and they're like in another Spider-Verse.
I know,
so
weird.
That's pretty cool.
Well, but the thing is, like, how long is that? How long will that like last before Sony kind of wants even more money and more control because they're seeing that it's kind of successful? especially with Venom,
Yeah.
and like Spider-Verse, like those movies being successful. Like, what if they think they can, like it seems like they took like a smaller role there with the losses of the Amazing Spider-Man. So like Marvel Studios kind of came on as a mentor type of thing. What if they decide to do everything 100% themselves again?
So they do have a contract right now that Sony cannot make any Spider-Man movies on their own.
Live action
for the next 5 Spider-Man involved MCU movies. So they still have, I wonder if the cameos count like Civil War, but they can't make any of their own Spider-Man live actions, at least for the next 5. So it definitely is in perpetuity. It's not like forever. MCU
exactly, yeah.
Because
if Sony does like think at this point, like, all right, cool, we're ready, and I think people will accept like the Tom Holland Spider-Man.
Another reboot.
What if they pull it back?
One.
Well, what if they just pull it back and just have Tom Holland starring its own Spider-Man Sony-esque movie again, and it's just going to be kind of weird.
Be in Venom. Boom.
Here's an idea: what if Disney just straight up buys Sony?
I don't think that it can work, right? Isn't Sony like pretty fucking big?
Well, they can just buy the studio part of Sony. I don't think they care about Walkmans
or like TVs and shit. Like
PlayStation. No, they won't want to make a PlayStation.
Cameras.
I know, right? Ooh, that'd be exciting. A Disney camera. Everything's animated and singing. But yeah, so that's a lot of the behind the scenes stuff with Spider-Man,
right,
because he has been around a long time. But one of the benefits to that is people already kind of understand his backstory, whether or not you watched 1 or 2 of the films.
What drives him, how he functions.
You know a lot of his powers already. You know what he can do.
What he wears.
You know Mary Jane. You know Aunt May.
I'm in love with Mary Jane.
So I think it was a great idea for the MCU not to have so much of an origin story behind Spider-Man. I don't know what you guys think about that, but we have literally seen it 3 or 4 times already.
That was fine with me. Like, I think that's a very smart
thing.
It's
fine with John.
I need to know how Uncle Ben died.
Again, I want to see him die again.
Yeah.
We've seen Uncle Ben die as much as we've seen Martha and Thomas Wayne die, so I'm just like, I think we're over it. We know what happens.
Martha?
Yeah, you gotta say Martha.
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 Wait, what did you say?
Why did you say that name?
We know what happens already at this point, and I think like Feige was perfect for them to just kind of be like, all right, yeah, I mean, we know who this kid is. Like, as soon as we reveal the name and reveal like his supporting character who was like living with them, like that's Aunt May and that's like Peter Parker.
Uncle Ben walk out of the restroom like in the next one, like, what's up?
I was here the whole time.
Yeah. And then it was like so awesome that like just the fact that he's talking to Tony Stark. I remember that first initial moment where he's talking to Stark and Stark is looking up a YouTube video. And like, Peter Parker's trying to play it off. He's like, no, they did it in the computer and shit. Like they just like it's a special effect. And then like, and no, he's actually Spider-Man. And it's like it's really, really cool because you never really thought you would get there, at least for that character.
And we technically also, I think we talked about this in season 1 when we talked about Spider-Man Homecoming, but we really haven't even seen Spider-Man alone in his own movie yet. Because in Civil War, we had 400 other superheroes, and in Homecoming, Tony Stark is a really big part of Homecoming.
And then Avengers, everyone's there again.
Everyone's there. Infinity War, he gets dusted.
Damn.
Hell, in Far From Home, he's got like Nick Fury over his back.
That's interesting.
Fury.
And I think that's partially what the strength of having him in the MCU is you get to see Spider-Man with other characters. And
before he's gone.
I wonder if it's just because we've seen Spider-Man alone already. Again, across 6 or 5 or 4
other movies,
and
that
cartoons.
His value in the MCU is him being with
games.
other people,
right? Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense because like it's almost like a franchise rule. Because if you think about it, like they don't want to use in a Batman movie, they didn't want to use the Riddler again because like because you've seen him before,
Jim Carrey,
and so the only reason they used the Joker is because they had a different take on him, obviously. But the thing is, like, I think they asked Nolan, like, what villain are you going to use again? Are you going to use the Riddler? Because everybody thought it was just going to be a natural progression. And Nolan gave an answer saying, like, we're trying to use a villain that you've never really seen on, like, film before, like, or
Bane.
at least go for those. Yeah, I know. The funny part about that is that eventually Bane came around. But
also
that's the same thing.
We've never seen the Joker before.
But the thing, well, I mean, the Joker was like a different like take on it, so like it makes sense.
Winning.
But Spider-Man, on the other hand, I can't ever see them using like a Doc Ock or a Green Goblin again in this franchise. That will probably never happen.
Well, Spider-Man has so many villains, which we'll talk about. But
that's so Craven.
He has probably, I don't want to say more than everyone else, but he has so many villains.
All after animals.
He does. Yeah, he doesn't have the problem of a lot of these superheroes were like, oh, we've only got a couple for these guys, or he shares them with a bunch of other
You
superheroes.
have one villain that can literally turn into multiple villains in the Chameleon.
Oh.
Let me just be the
That's true.
Kingpin. Let me be Craven. Let me be,
Did you guys ever play the Spider-Man
Nope.
Game Boy game?
No, we played the one for the PlayStation.
Oh, you guys have
PlayStation
money?
game.
We had the PlayStation ones and the movie iteration ones.
Yeah, I
and
played Spider-Man 2 on the PlayStation. It was really good.
That was voted one of the best ones.
And
But the
True
newest one that
Electro.
came out
It's pretty
is
good
the
too.
best one.
It's like open world.
The best one for sure.
So excited! Oh my god, I'm so excited.
Yes.
So Tom Holland and let's just go through. He's not in too many movies, but let's talk about all of his sidekicks. And I guess
Supporting cast.
Supporting cast.
So
Happy
So you have
Hogan.
Happy
Hogan
Hogan.
is in. He plays kind of the caretaker while Tony Stark isn't around.
He's even in going to be in Far From Home apparently.
Yeah, so Happy Hogan, obviously
John
Tony
Favreau.
Stark. Tony Stark as Iron Man,
Listen to
kind
him
of
as-
a mentor character really there.
And I
It's
really
pretty cool.
did because he is a youth. He is like not just a youthful. He's in school. He's like a high schooler in these films, but he has a lot of really cool friends too.
Isn't it very believable as opposed to like previous Spider-Man,
like a 30-year-old.
high school ones? Well, not just like in that sense.
My fist breaking your teeth, that's the accident.
That's the thing is like the high school
Yeah.
situations in recent or in the movies before this were very idealized.
Yeah, like
your
your last year.
well, it's also
Hey, we're graduating next year. Don't change. I signed your crack.
That's not what I
Your
mean.
book, not your butt crack.
That's not what I mean. I was just talking about like in terms of like the way, like it feels very like early '90s ish, like give me your lunch money type of
Yeah.
shit, and like
Fucking nerd.
that. Yeah, exactly. That stuff didn't really happen during my high school years. Like there wasn't like cliques like the way.
Okay, you
think
weren't
there were.
bullied. Congrats.
No, I'm just saying like there was a very idealized versions of high school in those two movies or in those two franchises. This next one, Homecoming, feels like a legit, like almost like John Hughesian in a way, like because it's like the detail that makes up these kids. They're not
You have the burnouts, and you have the band kids, and you have the smart kids, and you have the cool
they're
kids.
not
and you have
teenage. Well, I mean, I don't know, but yeah, I guess so. But they're not teenage stereotypes. Like they're not like you don't see like
They're diverse.
you don't see a big buff guy running around and be like, I'm the fucking bully.
Yeah, which
Like, it's
happens
not-
in I think both
Both of those. Yeah, exactly.
And so and it's outside of the high school stuff. Well, let's just talk more about the high school stuff. That's what made Spider-Man unique, even in the comic books, was that he was dealing with all of this stuff.
with puberty. and-
Yeah. And,
right.
and compare that to every other comic book at the time, which had like people were like, "Who cares about what they do at home? We want to see them
Iron
fighting
Man's
stuff."
drinking. I'm
Yeah.
just kidding.
So Spider-Man was a huge part of Marvel, making their characters super human
and relatable.
and relatable.
You got someone like that's gonna basically apply to
Yeah.
the teenagers or the young kids. Or
And
whatever.
I think I told you guys I was listening to that podcast about Marvel versus DC called Business Wars. It's a different podcast. Listen to it.
You already have plugs.
Sorry, but they were. I think they were talking about the guy who ran DC reading the Spider-Man comic book and being like, no one's gonna buy this. There's like 4 pages of just him
moping,
thinking about it, and then
People
cut
ate it
to
up.
Spider-Man's
They're like-
outselling, everything they had. So I think that's what's really good about this film, and I that human part helps because if you think about the world that Spider-Man is in, he is surrounded by other superheroes all the time.
In
So
this one, yeah.
you can't just have classic villain stories. Because he's in a world where there are Avengers and aliens,
He
and
feels caged up in like
Yeah.
his school life.
he needs to have that limitation and those questions about himself, or else he would just be, I don't want to say useless, but like, what's the you're stopping robbers, but the Chitauri are coming. Or
Yeah.
something.
I like that though. Like
Thanos
this
is about
this-
to dust your ass.
Again, this movie kind of like, it hit that balance way more than the previous franchises. And I love that angle, because
yeah.
he's still a kid. So like he aspires to be like the Avengers and stuff.
And he even makes, and that was the whole point of the very first, for Homecoming, remember, is he wants to be an Avenger, and he makes the choice at the end, maybe not now, like maybe...
He's like, I want to be a kid. still.
Yeah.
I got to
It's
live out
such
my life.
What a fun, smart way to have him choose that, lifestyle instead of just having him. Like, it's almost the opposite of what we see in these other Spider-Man
Coming
films
of age.
where they like do the opposite. They're like, we're kids. Now I'm an adult. Like, I want to be like the guy saving the world. And here is he saves the world and he's like, I don't want to do that. Like, maybe I should just be a kid.
Like, Mom, can you make me food?
Mama, Well, he can't ask his mom. So
Oh shit!
I don't know.
Aunt May, can you make me food?
I know we're not supposed to be talking about the other ones. Remember the crazy backstory in Amazing Spider-Man with his
Where they were
parents?
secret agents and
Yeah.
they crashed on a
On
yeah.
a plane, and
Yeah.
that sequence was 25 minutes long.
Yeah, it was going off the rails there. But
Whoa.
let's get back to Homecoming's supporting cast. So you have Betty Brant, who is played by an actress I don't remember what her name is.
Fuck. Well, why'd you bring her up?
Shit.
I'm just kidding.
Well, I was just trying to go down to the list again because you guys went on.
Oh, you want to go on
tangents.
your IMDb and we'll talk about
No, Zendaya is really Betty Brant isn't really a big.
in the
part of
first
the
one a
movie.
little bit.
She's a pretty
yeah.
big character in the comics, though. It's noticeable.
in the
It's
comics.
really noticeable. I mean, it's important to note that she's there though because she might bloom into an important character. You got Ned Leeds,
Yeah.
his best
Guy in
friend
the
in the
chair.
movie.
Ned is really funny. I like him.
He's in Avengers also.
You
yeah.
have
Did he get dusted?
Maybe.
Maybe. I'll look it up right now.
Half
So
his
yeah,
friends.
my bad. Zendaya plays Michelle Jones, who is initials are MJ. Apparently the character is not an adaptation, obviously, of Mary Jane Watson, but they do want to leave those letters there to remind you of the dynamic that could happen. You have Donald Glover as Aaron Davis, who
Prowler.
yeah, exactly, is an uncle to Miles Morales. Which is pretty interesting. If you guys have watched, I feel like the people who watch Spider-Verse and then go back and watch Homecoming, they're like, "Holy shit!" I mean, that's not to say that Miles will show up anytime soon, but that is exciting to think about. You have Marissa Tomei as May Parker.
Marissa Toe and May.
Yeah, so Marissa Tomei plays a younger version of, even though I mean, she's not old at all, but she is kind of a younger version of Aunt May.
The youngest.
Oh, because in the comics, Aunt May is drawn kind of like a grandmother as opposed to an aunt. So they wanted kind of less grandmother-y stuff and more actual
I'm
aunt.
not a regular mom. I'm a cool mom.
Well, because
Cool
isn't that
aunt.
what an aunt does or an uncle does? They
cool
they
aunt.
kind of don't know how to they're not exactly parents. They're just kind of
Oh, I was
And
like, why does she have any kids herself? But yeah, I forgot about Uncle Ben.
And there's
My
kind
bad.
of a weird thing with Tony Stark and her. I mean, it's just a flirty thing. I guess there's Pepper Potts, but it's one of the comedic points from the Homecoming.
I think it might be meta too, because Downey Jr. and Marissa Tomei have been in a lot of or have been in a few movies together.
As love
So that's
interests.
To answer that question, we don't know if he's one of the few people that the directors won't confirm or deny, but they say it'll be addressed in Endgame whether or not Ned
Was dusted.
was dusted or not. How
I love that
exciting.
dusted.
What if he's not and he helps the Avengers? That would be sweet.
Weird.
Like if they go into the machine and Ned's at the computer or something cool. Because he's also the one that figures out that suit, right?
Nope.
The Stark suit.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Yeah, so Ned's pretty smart, okay? He reminds me of Kim Possible, the guy in the chair in Kim Possible.
Ron Stoppable.
Nope, not Ron. What was the guy?
The naked mole rat.
No, okay, you've named everyone except for the guy now.
I have no clue.
Oh, the guy in the chair who
I never
talks to
watched
the
Kim Possible.
beep, beep, beep.
I never watched Kim
Oh
Possible.
man, Kim Possible.
I only watched the live action one. I'm just kidding.
So a lot of this
Jacob
is
Batalon. Sorry, Jacob Batalon plays Ned Leeds.
Oh yes, yeah, good actor. What about the that teacher
Martin Starr.
from
Yeah.
Silicon Valley.
who breaks the whole MCU model because he's also in
He's also Amadeus Cho in the Incredible
Incredible
Hulk.
Hulk.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
interesting.
Well, I mean that's not the only thing that breaks
Hannibal
continuity
Buress.
here. I mean, there's at the very beginning of Homecoming, there's a title card that says 9 years later or some shit like that,
Oh.
and that does not make any sense at all. That would mean that movie would be taking place in 2020.
Wow.
So-
Marvel writers open invite, but John wants to school you.
I don't know if that was a Marvel
And
or a
screw
Sony
you.
thing. That's what makes me think of that's probably miscommunication on both the studios' parts.
Yeah.
It's like Sony releasing the Far From Home trailer.
There you go.
before the Endgame.
Before Endgame.
Let's talk about the other Carax, specifically the
Hannibal
villains.
Buress.
I really like the villain in Homecoming.
You have Adrian Toomes as the Vulture.
Birdman.
Technically,
Yeah, as
his
Vulture.
first villain is Captain America.
That's true because in Civil War, he
His first.
Keep your distance and web them up.
and he kills Ant-Man. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, he makes Ant-Man
Knocks
fall.
him, yeah.
But yeah, what
spider
do you guys
eats
think about
the
the Vulture?
Michael Keaton.
Yeah, pretty good.
Fantastic.
Do you think he got the role because he was in Birdman?
Batman?
I think there was
He's
some
got
sort
all
of
wings.
I want to say there's got to be like a wink thing there going on.
He knows how to fly. We'll just get him.
They said he kept saying I'm Batman
on set. Yeah, he kept saying that on set. Apparently,
he's going to be Hawkman too in any DC
in
stuff.
Hawkman.
Yeah.
I could see that
awesome
in the MCU.
He's just always the flying one.
Something.
He's going to be Archangel.
It's just nothing but bird related superheroes from here on out for him. So he was pretty great actually. He's got a really weird type of like. He's one of the better MCU villains because of the fact that like he
wants a means to an end almost.
And he's likable, yeah.
Well, all the villains have like really a means to an end, but he's like basically he's doing it for his family, which is kind of crazy.
Family,
Toretto, Corona, Light.
And that's insane because he's also like very villainous too. Like he has no problem killing someone like with a gun.
He's like, I'll straight throw hands at you, Peter. Yeah. I know you're 12.
Gosh, that scene where he is in the car and figuring out.
It's the best.
Oh, it's the best. The best.
It's the best.
Oh, it's me, Mario.
I kind of wonder why Spider-Man didn't just web him up when he brought. But again, it's like that dynamic between them because like he knows that it's his.
Kicked him in his face.
He's the father of what's.
Well, he also doesn't have the suit anymore at that point. Remember,
but he still has super strength.
He gets it took from him.
Yeah.
So he's kind of like not knowing whether or not he should do it. But yeah, I mean, he tries to kill Spider-Man. So
yeah,
even after he knows, he tries to kill. But he is redeemed because of that after credit scene. But a really good first villain, because not only is he just a normal comic book villain where he has a superpower trying to kill Spider-Man, but he's also someone, if you're a high school kid trying to talk to the dad of the girl you like, it's kind of, he's also an adversary. Yeah, he's an adversary that way too. Like you're super awkward. You're like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I remember there was a girl I went on a date with and her dad
ended up being Darth Vader.
Yeah. Her name was Leia Organa. No, her dad, this is going to sound crazy, but her dad showed me no, never mind. I don't want to say it. It's kind of scary. And in today's climate, not okay.
He showed me a severed head.
What he did to me was not okay. It was funny, but I asked maybe too much.
Yeah.
So we're on villains, right?
Yeah. So yeah. He's a good villain because he works on both levels, being not only the Vulture, but also being someone that Peter is intimidated by just regularly.
That was a really big twist too when you ended up finding out that like he was the villain.
There he is in the kitchen. Yeah.
That's crazy. But yeah, and then you also have the Shocker in
you have
Homecoming.
Two incarnations of the Shocker. You have the Bokeem Woodbine and Logan Marshall Green play Herman Schultz.
Hey, let us do some Shocker jokes, John. Give us some time.
Jackson Bryce.
Two in the
oh, Jesus Christ.
No Electro jokes?
Nope, I don't.
He already used them up in that movie. That's why.
Yeah, I
feel like those puns.
Yeah.
And then you also get the Scorpion, Matt Gargan.
You do, yeah. Michael Mando.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but not for that long.
Michael Mando plays Matt Gargan.
He's Nacho from
Nacho Libre?
No. Better Call Saul.
Better Call
he plays
Saul
Nacho
from the
Better
Breaking Bad universe.
Oh, the Childish Gambino's in this movie.
I just said that earlier. God damn it.
Oh, what did you say?
He's the Prowler. He's the Prowler. He's Aaron Davis.
Oh yeah, I was on my phone.
How dare you?
He's
I'm still doing Farmville. It's been 20 years.
He's Miles' uncle. He's the
my god.
He's the spray painting uncle.
Oh my god. How exciting.
Yeah. And the Matt Gargan is interesting though because like the Scorpion as a villain to me is kind of a cartoony villain for Spider-Man.
It's pretty cool because like they put 3 villains in there, and you're like, they only need 3 more for 6.
But they're a very different kind of villain. They're based in technology. They're not
in technology.
Well, even that one, yeah,
that are from Avengers incident. So like from Ultron and from the Chitauri.
That's true because the Shocker does have just like a Crossbones glove. Like he has Crossbones gauntlet.
It's crazy that we're still feeling the effects from the first Avengers.
From the Shocker.
Yeah, from the Shocker. I'm still feeling that Shocker. But there's also it's really cool because it isn't about mutation and the stuff that we've seen a lot of. It's very different. It's closer to Green Goblin in the old Spider-Man than anything else. But yeah,
it's almost like this Spider-Man universe, this one specifically, like have a lot of homemade material. Like the Spider-Man is homemade. I mean, not so much the Stark suit, but like the Vulture basically, like it was a do-it-yourself fucking suit. The same thing goes for the Shocker. It's because the Tinker, that villain is there too.
Yeah, he tinks.
Other villains that Spider-Man fights includes
Avengers.
Thanos,
Cole
Obsidian.
He fights Cole Obsidian
and Ebony Maw.
That's true. He fights Thanos. God,
Yeah.
he's really cool in that nice suit too.
He's one of the few that can take a punch from Thanos in the face, and he does multiple times in this movie in Avengers. And then the soon-to-be villains, the Elementals and Mysterio in Far From Home.
Yeah, Far From Home is going to be interesting. And this is an interesting podcast, too, because we're talking about Spider-Man in a lot of context, but he doesn't have a lot yet in the Marvel
True, he's only like
in 3 movies.
Yeah, he has a really good turn in Homecoming. But he's just a secondary character
in Civil War.
And it's funny because those are the only movies
War.
that MCU makes money off of is when he plays the.
It is really weird because like it's not something you would think you would hear, like that Spider-Man is a secondary character, but he definitely is in the grand scheme of things. He's definitely like a secondary character to the other ones.
He does add a lot to the repertoire that Marvel has because at some point you're like, where is Marvel's biggest superhero?
Yeah,
in this movie,
he's a second string, like person who's over there.
He is. It's gonna be interesting because after these, we'll talk about the future later on, but it'll be interesting because what happens after these 5 movies are up. Technically,
they can renew a contract or they cannot.
That's what I said.
I mean, Sony's reaping all the benefits. Feige and the Crave team is doing the bulk of the work. Sony's paying for production, but they're just literally getting the money for Homecoming and Far From Home.
But what happens when Sony thinks they could probably take over that again? They're just like, well, maybe we think we learned enough from you. We think we got it.
They're gonna make Finite War. I was kidding.
And so, like, you're gonna have like Tom Hardy's Venom fighting fucking Tom Holland's Spider-Man.
Venom.
Well, John, are there any other big characters that we
cats.
gotta talk about before we talk about our favorite moments?
No, we talked about pretty much all the villains
in that one movie.
Yeah, I mean, we missed Jennifer Connelly as Karen.
Whoops.
The AI suit
that's pretty cool.
That's inside of Spider-Man.
She's also in The Incredible Hulk. 2 people in the Spider-Man movies are from The Incredible Hulk movie.
No, not at all. She's from Hulk.
Oh yeah, regular Hulk. Ang Lee. Very true.
But Jennifer Connelly, the only reason she took the Karen role is because her husband.
They're both from Hulk movies, John.
Her husband is Paul Bettany, who voiced Jarvis, a suit in the early MCU movies.
And their child is going to be the voice of
something else, probably. No doubt. Yeah.
No doubt. Good band. So let's talk about our favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe Spider-Man moments.
You go first because you had a hard time before we started recording.
Baby. I like this sequence, and maybe this is because I'm afraid of heights. But the National Monument in Washington, D.C., that was a really cool sequence when he has to save his academic decathlon team. Acadec. Do you guys ever call it Acadec? Acadec?
No, that's really cool because that's the one time where he spreads he uses the gliding wings.
Yeah.
And in his first appearance, he has the wings like that.
And we rarely see Spider-Man outside of New York, and here he is in Washington, D.C. There aren't that many buildings for him to swing off of, so he's literally just has to climb and do his thing. And we see him in the suburbs later on. Then see the exact same movie. Yeah. And it's almost like Marvel's making these they're trying to break everything that they've already seen because Spider-Man, they're like, well, let's put him in Washington, D.C. and in Far From Home, let's put him in Europe and really expound on his powers and expound and see what he can do. Because you have to. I imagine Spider-Man swinging from buildings.
That's the weird thing about it. I think this is like I'm going to go ahead and go on a little tangent here. I haven't done this in a while.
Oh boy, welcome back to.
Guys, skip ahead to.
That's a little frustrating to me. Like as a Spider-Man fan, I know what Marvel's. I get the intent. You're obviously trying to be different from the stuff that came before. So like you don't want to show this and that. But like Spider-Man, like him being afraid of heights is not Spider-Man to me. Like sort of, or like it's a not Spider-Man moment. I know obviously it is Spider-Man because the motherfucker is swinging, from web and shit. But it's a weird thing to hear because like I was even watching that with someone, and right after that scene where he's like I'm afraid of heights or something like that, like I hear the person that I'm watching it with go like, but isn't he Spider-Man though? Like, and I was like, yeah, I guess so. I was like, yeah, obviously he's still learning. It's a young one, so we don't see him like swinging from New York in this grand CGI sequence.
It's not like he was out bungee jumping like every weekend before he was Spider-Man though. So I think it's one of those things that
and that's true. I mean,
he
those
has to
movies...
learn, and he's young, and he's gonna learn, and eventually to not be. I mean, he was on a freaking airplane in Homecoming.
Oh yeah, and that's something that the other Spider-Man
exactly.
didn't do.
He's like I can swing from buildings. I was up like 30,000 feet.
Yeah, and then it's going to be interesting when he comes back into Far From
Spider
Home.
Sense too. The Spider Sense thing, the lack of Spider Sense, which is like a key Spider-Man
he
key Spider-Man power.
Like straight up goes into space.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like,
there's
Spider-Man
nothing that can
space.
scare him. Like, there's nothing that can scare him now.
It's crazy. I think these movies are gonna be. I don't know what the upcoming films are like because it feels like he's experienced a lot of different things already.
So by the third MCU Spider-Man movie, he will be like the actual Spider-Man that everyone knows.
Well, I think I get your point that one of his lines that he always says is, "I'm your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man." But how big the neighborhood is,
he's like your cosmic neighborhood.
I know. And by neighborhood, I mean this solar system. Yeah, exactly. I will protect. Because he doesn't. But we do see a lot of that though. Like he knows the shop owner. I think we see the friendly.
That shop blows up.
Peter Parker.
We see the note. We see the note that he leaves, which is like a Spider-Man thing where he leaves a note.
Yeah.
So that was a really good first moment. Because that was really like you get to see like what he's made out of. He has to think on his feet, and he's got nobody there type thing. And
it's classic Spider-Man because he's really doing it for a love interest. I feel like because Liz, we didn't talk about Liz. Liz is a love interest in this movie because Spider-Man is like obviously a teenager and he likes people.
Hormones.
So like in the comics, obviously it's either towards Mary Jane or Gwen Stacy. And this one they use a different character who's still in the Spider-Man canon.
Yeah.
They use Liz. What was her name? Liz Allen. There you go.
And we talk about how it is a little bit different than the kind of high school we've seen in other Spider-Man movies where there's a bully, and that's because he's at like an honors high school, and there is a bully, but it's not a bully that you would expect.
The dude from the Budapest Hotel.
Flash Thompson is played by
Penis Parker. That's what he calls him.
Oh yeah. So there is a bully, but it's not the conventional sense at all.
Tony Revolori plays Eugene Flash Thompson in this one,
and he is kind of up the academic decathlon is like kind of the cool
thing to do in here. Yeah.
So it is. It's like a totally kind of different kind of
bully.
It's a different type of bullying too, but he's still like a bully, which I still like, which is still kind of like he's still,
and he's so funny.
But he's not really a bully as much as he's like roasting him. Like he's not punching him, but he does kind of like
boom.
He kind of does like threaten to beat him up at one point, but it never happens.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the same.
They steal his car,
like the same size. Yeah,
it's true. Andrew, what was your favorite moment in the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
Were you trying to be Alan Rickman? Anyway.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Mr. Potter.
Yeah. My favorite moment, I think it's more of like a shot. Like I think if you paused it on this moment, like you'd fangirl out because. It's one in Civil War where War Machine and Spider-Man have decided to take on Ant-Man with the help of Iron Man, and he comes in swinging. And basically Spider-Man swinging off of War Machine, and War Machine's letting off all these like missiles and stuff like that. And just that one shot is it's just something that I never thought would happen. Like I never thought I'd see this in the MCU ever. So even seeing that shot normally is like, man, that's really cool because I mean you don't really get to see like we've seen the Captain America team up with like Iron Man, scene in the first Avengers. You get to see Hulk and Thor team up and stuff like that. So to see Spider-Man really get to team up with any of the Avengers was just mind-blowing to me. And I remember, again, even watching that movie now, it takes me back, gives me goosebumps just being able to see
Spider-Man and his amazing friends.
Yeah,
really.
Exactly. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And he's an actual, I don't want to say mutant, but he has like a different power. He's just not...
He's one of the strongest ones. Like he
actually has a superpower in the most classic comic book way. Because all this MCU stuff is like they show you that it's kind of like almost a little bit it could happen.
It's like grounded in this weird realism where they give you like more hormones so you're stronger.
But Spider-Man was bitten by a radioactive spider. That sounds very like far-fetched. And they even gloss over that like in Homecoming. They're just like, so you got bit by a spider? And he's like, yeah.
Spider's still alive?
Yeah, and he's like, no. And he's like, so like they're brushing past that. They're just like, no, whatever. Like it happened. They're just like, it's Spider-Man.
And this is kind of, because Spider-Man has been around for so long in comic books, they were literally, I mean, we talk about his villains being based after animals. That's to the extent of how the people that created these characters were making them. They're like, what's an animal? Like, what are the features that they have?
Yeah.
And because that's what it was like back then, writing these comics and being like, oh, he's a rhino, so he's strong and he's got a horn.
Exactly. So Paul Giamatti.
And then you get to the more like cerebral ones. Like Doctor Strange is not a very like that's a like a Steve Ditko type.
Well, also it might not even be like Doctor Strange doesn't really go into like. It's not very superheroic, even though he is a superhero. He's not like like tights and like save the world like on a phone call type of thing. Like he's kind of like a monitor of like things. So it's like
it's like a superhero that you would write when you're on acid or something, and you're like, ooh,
which probably didn't happen.
Probably happened.
So yeah, that was
John, what's your favorite? Speaking of acid, John, you still addicted?
no, my favorite. If we're talking about acid and Spider-Man, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. No, I'm just playing. No, my favorite MCU Spider-Man moment is literally the sequence where I don't know why I said literally. It's just the sequence. The sequence when
Clearly.
Ooh, is literature like books?
when he okay, so I found a way to use that word. When he literally drops in to kick Falcon and Winter Soldier's ass in Captain America: Civil War, because that's the first time you kind of see him in action.
And he takes out 2.
Yeah, what?
He takes down
Well,
2
yeah,
of
he
them.
takes down 2 of them, and
He takes the number 2.
yeah, that's what I was like. What?
He shoots webs out of his butt.
It shows how strong he is because, like, I think he kicks Falcon, and then like Winter Soldier comes up and tries to punch him with his metal arm, and he literally blocks it with ease and looks at it and is amazed by it and makes a joke. And then throughout that fight, like, they're kind of struggling with him, and he's basically having a hell of a time. Like, he's word vomiting while they're fighting, and they're actually getting annoyed of him.
Yeah, he's funny.
Yeah, and I think it's like that is like really, really Spider-Man like, and that's like peak Tom Holland Spider-Man for me that still hasn't been matched. So that's like pretty cool.
It's speaking about Tom Holland. He's also fun off camera and when he promotes, and they really do pick on him.
He's really into it.
He's really into his role, and I think that helps a lot because he's just having fun being Spider-Man.
For him, it's like a dream come true. Like really, yeah, like a dream come true role. Which to be honest, like I mean, Garfield said the same thing, and this and that, but Tom Holland really does have like the charisma to like him to embody that type of personality even off screen because like he seems
and
to
he's
kind of
dating Zendaya.
Is he really?
Yeah, is that true, Andrew? Is that
No,
confirmed?
I think you're lying.
Oh, okay, never mind. I thought they were dating, which I was like, man, another off-screen, on-screen. Well, let's talk about where he ends up in Infinity War before we talk about, where he ends up in Infinity War before we talk about the future and what we think happens. So in Infinity War, he not only finds himself breaking Iron Man's commands and going into space to try to rescue Doctor Strange, but he has one of the most devastating snappings that, if I'm not mistaken, was somewhat improvised, right? Like it was a real moment.
Yeah, I think it like
He stole it from the 10th Doctor.
the way the story went
was
is
it.
that like he was just supposed to say, wasn't he just supposed to say Mr. Stark?
No, he was supposed to say, "Peace, I'm out," and then that was it.
Spider out.
Yeah.
And then he curls up like a spider when you kill it.
He was supposed to do something obviously that wasn't on screen.
Yeah.
Like, it was supposed to be very quick. I think Stark was supposed to just kind of look and then like he says Mr. Stark and then like jumps off. But like he improv'd, like a moment where he's kind of like, kind of begging Tony to like save him because of this unnatural event that's happening to him. And it's just one of the most heartbreaking scenes, probably the most heartbreaking scene in that movie.
Oh man, you could hear a pin drop in the theater during that moment, and
because it kind of brings you that reality that like
Yeah.
this guy is just a kid, like he just went on this like.
And to the credit of the Russo brothers, something that they did across all of the dustings is they cut a lot of the sound and music out during those moments. I don't know if you realize that when you watch it, just so it would be so quiet during those moments, so that you felt kind of irreverent. You're like, what's happening? Everyone, like, it was no music. It's just everyone's gone. And you're like, this feels empty.
You mean
And
the
it's
music of the
sad.
wind?
I know. Ugh, paint with all the colors of the wind. Am I right? But yeah, so he has that. And so we feel
Charcoal gray.
not only now I think we figure out Pepper Potts is alive, which is interesting. But one of the things that Stark has to deal with is losing the youngest member of the Avengers and the one he probably feels most responsible for.
Right. I think it's like also like a metaphor for just losing in general. The
Yeah.
fact that like, this just happened.
Young
and they're
guy,
just like,
It's kind of wild. And it's weird because we did talk about Far From Home, and
So now, let's get to this part of this story.
there's another movie.
So this is Sony's. I feel like this is 100% Sony's doing.
This is why when we have the answer to that question is like, does he survive? Yes.
Yeah.
Because he's got a new movie.
Yeah, exactly. So like the Nick Fury episode that we did,
Sure, we see him too, right?
Spider-Man and Maria Hill. We didn't have a Maria Hill episode, but like she's back too. So Spider-Man is alive apparently after Avengers Endgame because there's a movie called Spider-Man Far From Home
Because
coming
he
out.
has
Yeah.
time to go on a field trip.
Yeah, exactly. And he's not dust at all. He's fighting, villains like, the elementals, and apparently he's got Mysterio on his side. This is a very weird move by Sony, but I can totally see it, and I feel like it screams Sony because Sony just wants to get the word out. I mean,
want attention before it.
Yeah, exactly. The Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, the teaser trailer hit like a year before the movie actually came out.
You're the worst, Sony. No, I'm just kidding.
So, and I feel like a lot of people were, the general public, I think I went on Twitter right after that trailer hit, and a lot of people were kind of confused. They're like, wait, isn't Spider-Man dead?
Oh, it's a prequel, I see.
Yeah, and a lot of people are like that. They're like, oh, it's a prequel. No, it's just like, but the writing on the wall is just like, no, this fucking happens afterwards. Like, come on.
Oh, yeah.
I have this weird...
but again, it's like...
It's in a different universe?
No, well...
Oh, sorry, go on. Yeah.
Not really that's in a different universe, because it does set place after... Infinity War, for sure, 100%. I just looked it up, I was like, is this for sure? Yeah, it is for sure.
Feige says it takes place like weeks after Infinity War, or like right after Infinity War. But not Infinity War, Endgame. There you go.
I have this, the closer we get to Endgame, I have this weird idea that this is going to be kind of a silent hero type saving that happens in Endgame, where Parker on that bus gets to Far From Home and nothing happens in between, because the world is saved quietly. Does that kind of make sense? Like, I don't feel like the snapping happens and then Peter Parker finds himself coming back and then the field trip continues.
So you're seeing like an on-screen reset, really? Like a fucking...
yeah. And I think...
Like a Galaxy Quest, like, a Omega 13 moment, sort of?
And I feel like we will just come back and maybe the world doesn't have even a Captain America, or the ones that do give up their life or something like that, they just quietly
like fade,
or they were never there, and this next phase continues without anyone realizing that,
or maybe
Thanos was even around.
Maybe a few key characters, like maybe Doctor Strange,
they know,
or like
but
like the higher up ones, like Doctor Strange, maybe Captain Marvel.
Because there is no, I feel like it's harder and harder to come back from half of the world dying, or anyone knowing that has happened.
Right, and then having to fight like these very fantastical villains like somewhere else.
So I think the people who are going to go quietly.
I think you're totally right.
And people are just going to have like a knowing look, like, hey, we saved the world, and like Spider-Man just continues with his high school life never knowing.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. I think it's definitely a Days of Future Past, or again, like a Galaxy Quest. I'm thinking of a Galaxy Quest one because that's literally what happens. It's a reset button type of like scenario that's going to happen on screen.
Yeah.
I mean, how else would it fucking happen? You know, because like, how do you bring back?
You can't.
How do you bring back all these people without because there's going to be a Black Panther 2. We've said before. There's going to be a Doctor Strange 2. A fucking obviously we already know that there's going to be a Spider-Man. Far From Home. So you're totally right. I think that's probably definitely going to happen. The only thing that I was just kind of disappointed at, in just bringing it up in general, is, I mean, Sony could have waited.
It's like
just a bit, but I know that they're in charge of marketing and distribution there, as a part of the deal. So I get it, but damn, shit, they confused a lot of people that day when that trailer dropped.
But there's also a lot of confusion about the timeline of all MCU movies, because I mean, Captain Marvel was a prequel that happens way earlier. We only now realize where Guardians fits into the timeline. Mm-hmm. The Eternals movie that they're making is apparently set
thousands of years before.
So, and the MCU is I think they're running out of stories are taking place all at the same time, or the year after,
the
year after. So there's a lot of time jumping.
They must be excited to do that too, because I feel like they like all movies, you want to kind of subvert expectations of what you've seen before. So I feel like they have to be excited to make these movies not safe anymore, or even about obscure characters, because now
they built the world,
right?
They've done the legwork.
Whether or not it works, I mean, that's up to the audience, because the audience could be burnt out after Endgame. Yeah. Because how do you top that? In other words,
well, I think I think because there's so many now different kinds of movies and so many different themes that they can explore. You can go to MC movie without seeing the same movie twice, and or
sometimes you see the same movie, like Doctor Strange and Iron Man,
just a little bit better, baby, a little bit different, but
and Captain Marvel, I guess.
And because we're so close to Endgame, we'll find out.
Yeah, literally in a couple of weeks.
Finna
In a couple of
find
weeks.
Yeah.
Actually, from when this episode airs, it'll probably be 2 weeks, right? 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
That's gonna be
I
crazy.
mean, from us now, it's 3 or 4, but yeah, 2 weeks from you guys
yeah, exactly.
as you watch. So excited. I feel like we can probably do a whole episode just what we think is going to happen, but the closer we get to it, the more that we're seeing the next phase start to be announced and rolled out,
Yep.
the closer I get to where I'm like, this last thing is, we're kind of building up to something that I don't want to say it's going to be very climactic, but it's going to be a very quiet type end. Like, I don't think it's going to be as insane. It's going to be more sad. The resolution,
Okay.
I feel.
I can see that. I mean, it has to be sad.
Like
I feel
Days
like.
of Future Past type.
So sort of like, but like more, a little bit more sad, like less characters
Yeah.
than Days of Future Past.
I read a thing that said the audience reactions to Endgame is really good, and I'm like, well,
No
duh.
shit.
Like, what
Yeah.
the fuck are you talking? It's a 3-hour movie with all these
Yeah.
characters that you've loved forever. I don't know who's gonna
Kidneys exploded
and you
during
got,
that.
and you got to see it before everyone else. Like, I can't imagine you going in and be like,
Yeah, they're probably
so
like
stupid.
they're probably like.
of course you're gonna
raging.
like that fucking movie. Damn.
Wait, what if they did literally just like grab like general audience members?
Yeah.
Though? Like, what if they took a survey at the door and they're like, "Are you familiar with Avengers?" And they're like, "Yeah, all right, leave." And then like a person's just like, "I just thought it was a free movie." Yeah,
random
go
people.
in. Yeah, go
Can you
in.
Imagine.
That'd be crazy.
In the beginning, there's like previously on Infinity War. Any other final things about Spider-Man for y'all?
No, I think we're in the
Endgame now. I think we're in the Endgame now.
we're in the golden era of
Far from
Spider-Man.
the shallow now.
Oh, would you call this the Bronze Age of Spider-Man? Since
Yeah.
this is technically the Bronze Age.
Yeah, I would say so because like the golden age was, I think.
Maguire.
Yeah, still. Well, and then you had like the video games coming out back then, and then you
Yeah.
had the cartoon come out before that.
So the Silver Age was
Well, he was really
Garfield.
Garfield.
Yeah.
Raimi's like the thing he benefited from was he was like the only kid on the block
I'm
of
still,
that
I'm
time.
still
Or
Jenny
not the,
from
he's not the
block.
only superhero movie, but he was like the biggest single
Oh man, you almost said
superhero
tit.
of the time. Even the Superman wasn't, and
Brian Singer.
yeah, like Superman wasn't a threat during
Yeah,
that period. Of
Oh
time.
yeah, definitely.
Spider-Man.
The X-Men was multiple people that they had to share the spotlight. Maybe Wolverine, but
Right. Yeah.
Spider-Man, that was a really big moment because it was like
They say that a hero can save
oh yeah, he got that
us.
song.
I'm not gonna stand it.
Classic.
Watch it.
Watching it. Yeah, exactly.
We sang a lot on this
You forgot
side.
about that.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that's
back around.
That was the golden age, and then we're in the the Silver Age came with Garfield's era, and then the Bronze Age now with Tom Holland's
The current.
and his MCU friends and his Avenger friends.
It is. Yeah, I mean, I think he has a really good, unique thing going on in the MCU that we don't see in many other Spider-Man
Yeah, the fact
films. So.
the one shot in Civil War where he's standing next to Black Panther, Iron Man, the
Oh.
Vision. That's obviously way more Spider-Man than any other Spider-Man
Yeah.
that's ever been.
and
Actually,
You know,
live action.
It's like Spider-Verse.
what's
I
his
said live
great?
action.
He's not a senior yet, right? Like he's a fucking
No, he's like a sophomore.
yeah. So we got 2
He's
more
in
years.
junior high. I'm just kidding.
He's 10. So we got a lot, and one of the biggest things for me is the introduction of Miles Morales as being part of the MCU because
Oh,
of
okay. I
Sean
was like,
Connery.
yeah.
Like
'Cause
it's going to continue. Like it's going to be an
That's
interesting
true. I
thing.
mean, they do have they hold that option open because
Yeah.
like obviously Miles is
Miles.
They just can't use the word Spider-Man.
at this point. I mean, because in the timeline, I guess if we're going by timelines, like Miles has to be like a very small little kid
Yeah.
because like he can't be as old. He's like considerably younger than Parker. So Parker,
He's not even born yet.
Penis Parker.
well, they do say he has a nephew. Like
could be
Childish
different
Gambino
nephew.
said.
Yeah.
He didn't say which nephew.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be.
I guess you're right.
Got a brother.
And how old is Tom? I mean, he's young, so he's going to have a lot more.
Freshman year, was
Hey.
that 15? 14? 14, 15?
I don't know. According to R. Kelly, all he looks at is legal.
Jesus Christ.
Oh shit!
I'm fighting for my fucking life.
God damn!
My fucking life.
Oh shit!
So yeah, Spider-Man, super excited to see. I mean, it sounds like, yeah, I feel like he's not going to be in this much of Endgame.
I feel like-
all the people who are dusted aren't going to be around.
I
for a
get the
long
feeling.
time.
Yeah, I was like, I'm going
to the one money shot at the end where they
Yeah.
all take down Thanos.
I get the feeling that like if we're talking about the dusty characters, I guarantee you they're
Yeah.
probably not going to show up until like the third act of this movie.
Yeah, and if
Endgame anyway. Yeah.
yeah, I don't even know.
I feel like they're like literally because like
What does that even look like? We only saw like 6 people fighting Thanos, and I was like, this is a lot of people already.
Yeah,
I know how
Somebody get out of
chaotic.
the
How
shot.
chaotic do you get at that point? Like,
Everyone slap him once.
everyone hold him down, just like the way the other one.
because like I don't know, because Evangeline Lilly is apparently in Endgame. So like I'm just thinking, all of these are
So is
probably.
Pepper Potts, and she's a superhero.
Yeah,
Remember Pepper
Valkyrie.
Potts? Doesn't she have
So
like?
is Valkyrie. Valkyrie's in
Valkyrie,
this
all
one
the
movie
supporting
again.
cast. There's
They're
literally
all
going to be a
powerful.
movie where everyone comes back.
Happy Hogan? What's he gonna do? Shoot
But
him?
how fast is 'cause,
Drive?
Like, even when you watch Infinity War now, like it seems like you're watching a scene with one person, and then like you don't see him again for another like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So like, how is
They
that
just
going to
separate them in Infinity
It's like
War.
Yeah.
a Walking Dead episode.
How do you do that with Endgame, which is literally an end cap to like all these
22
movies?
So
movies.
here's my question for you guys.
You make it 3 hours. That's what happens.
I know this is far into speculation, but what do you think of Marvel hiding just a random new villain in this movie? Do you think they would do that without announcing who plays it?
I
Because have
think-
you guys seen those things? Or like, there's this other guy. Like,
And that would be awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so down.
I'm sure it's going to be an after credits because you have to set up a teaser for what's to come.
yeah, the thing
So
that combines the rest of them.
Even if they show like something like the Collector like freaking out or something like what? There's something else or like
Or like a planet being eaten.
It's Lex
something.
Luthor.
yeah
being
exactly.
born.
Yeah.
He made Facebook.
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's definitely plausible.
Yeah, it
'Cause
would
I
be
mean-
it would be freaking insane to not have for this to be under wraps for this long.
Like that's it. Like because I just don't imagine that this is just an ending. Like and we lived happily ever after.
Yeah.
And that was it. You know.
There's something.
Yeah, for sure. Something.
Something's
I don't know about
brewing.
a secondary
You can
villain in
see
the
Nick
movie
Fury,
though.
Nick Fury going, let's it's time to do the Secret Avengers. Just kidding.
I don't know about a different villain in the movie. I
Yeah.
feel like they might like do the Jaws treatment for Thanos since we saw him so much in the last movie that he will literally like he'll have a presence obviously because he
Yeah.
did that. But I think that they won't fight him basically until like
He'll be like
the very
plot.
end. Yeah.
One of the cool things, so this is another really amazing thing, if this happens in Endgame, is the fact that they're time traveling to other films is the closest you're going to get to that thing they do in sitcoms where they
Yeah, to
play
a
the
clip
best
show.
moments.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, you're going to get that in this movie.
They're
You're gonna see
reviewing
the
everything they've
yeah.
ever done.
Do you remember
basically.
that time it's going to be something really close to that. But one of my big things too that kind of where I don't buy that that's going to happen in Endgame and is Disney wouldn't sit on something like that because if they did announce something like that, they just know more people would come to their movies. Like, you don't sit on something that's going to get people to come to your movie. I know all these people are already going to go see Endgame, but can you imagine if, you know, they were just showing trailers for like Iron Man and never showing the villain? Like, you would put something really big like that out there so that more people would watch your movie. Like, I just don't, unless they are so confident that they're going to make money anyways,
Yeah.
that they'd hide it. But more than likely, you would tease something like that because you want to make as much money as you can.
I still don't think. I mean, I don't know because like I feel like if it's a secondary villain, I don't know who the villain would be. Someone at work told me that it would be like the Red Skull, and I'm just thinking like, no, it's already been done.
It wouldn't be.
It wouldn't be anyone you know. Or, like
Yeah.
it would
wouldn't
be
be
some.
an actor you'd know for sure.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be like I don't know. I just feel like it wouldn't be like a
It's
very
gonna be Thanos dead, and then you can see Death come by and revive him. or
like
something.
Death
Sure, you know
or
who that
like
is, yeah.
you know
Yeah.
or like Kang the Conqueror, like someone that people don't know.
MODOK.
Yeah. Or like I mean, what's another big cosmic villain?
Doctor
Like,
Doom.
Galactus is too easy. Everyone
Ooh,
thinks that Galactus is
big
going to
one.
happen.
Yeah, but Galactus. But I don't
that's
know if
way
they've had-
too easy.
Yeah,
Like-
I don't know if they've had the time to edit him in since the Fox deal.
Yeah, and then like there's no way.
Because
no way.
Galactus
There
is
really
like,
isn't.
but
And-
because
and
he would be the
Galactus-
next big. Like,
Yeah, it was like Galactus you would save. I feel.
I think if anything, they need to like bank on like the scroll thing, where like they need to reveal that someone is basically not who they seemed.
Yeah.
Because then you're like, oh, like you can do Secret Invasion, like
Yeah.
you know, Captain America versus Captain America, and Iron
Yeah,
Man versus
I
Iron
thought
Man.
about that too. Is like Us, this movie, like
Yeah.
Jordan Peele's Us,
Yeah.
where it's you
I got 5 on it.
you know what they're talking about. No, I'm just kidding. No,
Yeah.
But where the villain, your true villain is yourself. But there's just I don't know. I feel like it is going to be a clips type situation
where they go back and hit their greatest
and
hits.
see the greatest
really, yeah.
hits. You're gonna see
Because like Crossbones apparently said that he was in this movie.
Oh God, yeah.
I'm
you're
sure
gonna see the
everyone
greatest
is. You're
hits.
gonna see like Odin come back, and you're gonna see like Tilda Swinton's Ancient One, and you're gonna
But
see
not Edward Norton's Hulk.
Yeah, damn.
Ooh. maybe you will. I'm kidding. In a different
Sorry,
universe.
I was trying to be realistic on who you wouldn't see.
And I think you'll still get the big fight scene, but I think ultimately a big time bomb will happen, and it's like none of it happened.
No, somebody's gonna die.
Oh yeah, I feel like the ones who die
has to be their battle cry. Like,
Yeah.
you fucking killed him, and then everybody's just like, get him.
Oh, like Coulson.
He's
the
got
first one.
yeah, exactly.
Cole's gonna die again.
Well, and it makes sense to like wrap things back up, like to go around full circle. So you know,
I think it'll be interesting, and I feel like the ending will be incredibly sad, but it won't be this thing where everyone's mourning because most of the people won't know. Can you imagine if you just erased Iron Man from all the MCU? Damn.
And see, I don't think that'll happen. I
Damn.
think like
Just imagine it though.
I can see Cap being erased for some reason.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be Cap
I
that
don't know
dies,
about
and then
Stark.
and then like it's gonna be so sad that like I can't do this.
Yeah.
Like, look, my best friend's
Yeah.
dead. I can't do this anymore.
Well, if you really dove deep, you probably could. I mean, there's so many actors that are already announcing
Sometimes
that
you can't just cut the wire.
there are a lot of actors that are already announcing they're not going to be in any more MCU
Yeah.
movies, and you can only
They're
think
ruining
of
it.
one thing. You're like,
They're
oh,
ruining it.
dead, dusted.
It's really interesting because like the only two actors have been saying that are
Chris Evans.
Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. Chris Hemsworth has said that he would like to do more. He
And
would
Black Widow
like
has
to
her
do
own
more.
movie. And
Yeah, Black Widow's having
Mark
her own
Ruffalo's
movie.
probably on his way out because he getting the age train is leaving.
Hawkeye's been treated.
Hawkeye.
Has been treated kind of like unfairly in these movies.
He needs his own Disney Plus show at least.
I feel like that motherfucker might just die.
Hawkeye?
Yeah.
No, he's going to live nicely with his family.
What
I
if
feel
he
like they're
sacrificed
gonna-
himself to bring back his family?
I don't think so. Not again.
He's gonna be
not,
like,
not implied again.
Quicksilver died, and so will I. I'm just kidding.
I have
He
nothing to
dies-
live for.
He dies saving Scarlet Witch. That would be
Imagine
fucking
that.
sad.
Yeah.
And then
Quicksilver.
Vision's like, you took my moment.
What if Quicksilver comes back? Shit.
Oh yeah, that's one
That'd
person
be-
that's
that'd
not
be
coming back.
interesting.
Last thing we'll talk. I mean, and this is no longer Spider-Man. This is just speculative. Do you think anything from the Fox deal appears in Infinity War? Like Wolverine pops out or something? Anything from the?
I think it's too
I
late.
don't think so. Yeah,
I think
You think
Marvel's
they're still
smart.
reshooting stuff now.
Are they really?
Yeah,
but I don't think it's like there would be a teaser that big
Yeah.
because they
they have to make that decision. Like you're Wolverine now.
The easiest
exactly.
thing-
They just
I
like
think the easiest thing to do is just get Ryan Reynolds
Yeah.
to come out at the end. Like, that's all, folks. Like, like
and that would be easy.
He's safe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that would
yeah.
be big.
Deadpool's safe.
And not to mention that it'd be easy to shoot. Like, you get him in front of a green screen and he comes out like Porky Pig or something.
Yeah.
Like, and we'll see you next chapter. We'll see you next year.
Talk
whatever.
about Disney a little bit. Talk about
Yeah.
that movie, like literally the movie they just
Yeah.
watched.
He's like, I think I'm
That
the
would
only
be
one
really
coming
cool.
back. He's like, I don't think anybody else is coming back.
yeah, that's a smart. That's a
that would
quick
be really
thing.
cool. Yeah,
That's something that you can do cheap, quick,
Yeah.
and Ryan Reynolds would have. Well, obviously, he
Yeah,
would
they
say yes
already,
in a heartbeat.
They already
'cause he's gonna
casted him. They don't have to find like
He's
a
going to
guy.
be in one of the highest grossing movies of all time. Yes, like put me in
money.
it.
Yeah.
that being said, I don't think none of the Fox
Yeah, I don't
Marvel
think they
characters
will.
are going to make it. I think
Yeah,
it's way too recent.
Wait, isn't that crazy? If Deadpool is part of the MCU now, because he is, what? Brolin is Thanos
Cable.
and Cable.
Can he though? Because like Deadpool technically can exist outside of a continuity, so he can be the same.
He's aware. Like
Yeah.
he's probably like, oh, it's one of those reboots.
Yeah, sure, he'll talk about the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was like, hey, you look a lot like Cable. Like looking at Thanos.
Yeah, well, exciting stuff. We're just so close to Endgame. We're just so excited to see it. Oh God, oh my God.
Yeah, we'll probably geek out some more on the next episodes too as well.
Let us know what you guys think about Spider-Man, and fuck it, you can tell us what you think is going to happen in Endgame too. Some of you guys already have, and you guys have some really good
Theories.
theories. And I will say this about Infinity War: we got a lot of things right when we talked about.
Yeah,
where we thought
we're gonna
Infinity
look
War.
back on Endgame to this
Yeah.
episode and be like, we were 100% right.
We should guess something important. Who's going to win the Super Bowl this year? Who do you think's going to win the Super Bowl this year?
What? That's so
Next
early.
year.
Baseball just started.
Yeah, who do you think's going to win the
Go
Super Bowl?
Pats, baby.
Oh, do you think the Spurs are going to win the championship?
No,
No.
God, why you got me all sad? But they can beat anybody in the West, to be honest with you.
As long as we pay the Denver Nuggets first round, I'm all right. Hey.
Hey.
All right, so yeah, let us know. Go to @DelphinPod. Let us know. Let us know all your thoughts about Spider-Man.
THOTS thoughts.
Send us thought pics. But yeah, let's go to plugs. What do you guys have to plug? Oh, why did I say it like that?
Yeah.
Who got it, boys?
What I got to plug is
Go down to the interstate.
come on down to Heroes and Fantasies, the biggest comic book store in Texas. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, for real, if you like Spider-Man stuff, even if you like the Spider-Verse stuff, like the different Spider-Man, there's so many different interpretations of the character. Basically, kind of you can compare him to like a Flash. Like there's so many different versions of the Flash or whatever.
Y'all getting those
Or a
Endgame?
Batman.
You guys getting
Yeah,
those Endgame?
Fat Man.
Endgame pops?
Hell yeah.
How many?
Always.
Are you sold out already?
A
'Cause I'm
million.
not gonna fucking go over
No,
there.
they just
Okay.
they were just announced like today when we recorded this, so not when you listen to this, listener.
When Infinity War Pops came out, I bought a ton.
Yeah, there's a 10-inch Thanos with the sword.
I can't handle a 10-inch Thanos.
Yes, you can.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, I'll try anything, I guess.
Try anything once.
I mean, I don't
Do
care.
something strange for some change.
Hey, you only have to tell me to try it once. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, fucking whatever.
But yeah, if you like Spider-Man, come over to H&F and we'll hook you up with some comic books, the source material, as you will.
Would you say, are you going to be, nope, I'll ask you before I say this.
Yeah,
on the air.
okay, cool.
John, what do you have to plug, buddy?
Not much.
Cool.
Just listen to all your Delphin Pod podcasts. Listen to all your Sticker Fridge podcasts as well. Director Showdown is still going strong. I was just on an episode that just released recently, maybe a couple of weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, or maybe 3 weeks, depending on when you're listening to us. I was
2 years.
on a Christopher Nolan episode, Nolan versus Fincher on Director Showdown. I did the Prestige, and it was a fun time. Brent and Adam were great, awesome hosts. They really, that show is really fun to be on, and it's really fun to listen to too. It's really funny, so go ahead and check that out. Also, I kind of do want to plug a former.
What are you trying to? A former
sorry.
person? Oh, what is he now?
I wanted to wish Clay
Happy New Year.
a happy New Year. I guess no, the best wishes to.
Yeah, for sure.
To,
So Clay was the host of Fanboy Comics.
Right.
Boy.
For we made that joke a lot. He's actually been on this podcast a lot. In
He was
the first
actually on
season.
very
We're going to go back and delete them all, and we're just going to edit parts in there. For-
Clayton was on this Delphin Pod Network, and he just found himself a new home, and we couldn't be more proud of him.
Yes, he did. He's on the Comic Book Legion podcast, which you guys can go listen to.
Yeah.
They're part of the
We're gonna
nation.
bleep this out.
They're part of the Nations of Nerds network. It is basically
They're not a Delphin Pod joint.
Oh, wait, obviously not. But they're way more in depth in comic books, in comic book knowledge than we are over here. And Clay was awesome. We hope to have him back again, and hope to collaborate in the future. So, I just wanted to give him a shout out here.
Yeah, I mean,
Clay, you're dead to me.
yeah. Podcasting is like a crime family, so watch your back, okay?
Yep.
Yeah. So, guys, listen to all the Dolphin Pod shows. We have a lot of really good stuff coming down the pipe. The pipe. I'm so fuck.
The crack pipe.
Sounds weird.
I'm just
Right?
kidding.
We got some crack coming down the pipe.
Yeah, exactly. We got some stuff that we're packing in the pipe.
Yeah. The human pipes. His pipes need cleaning.
So yeah. So yeah. I'm so excited for the Endgame podcast. Definitely go to patreon.com if you want to see a video pod we just recorded for Into the Spider-Verse, which is kind of
More Spider-Man.
More Spider-Man, kind of related to this. For everyone that bought a shirt, thank you so much. Well, I'll read you guys, once this is all done, I'll tell you about.
Send us pics of you in your shirt.
Yeah. Oh, we still want someone who's
Yeah. Oh yeah, and wearing other clothes
nothing
also.
else.
Yeah, don't poo bear it. You're gonna be poo bearing it.
Donald Duck this.
If you want to, yeah, poo bear it. I guess.
Christopher Robin.
Yeah, if you think it's funny and you're okay with it, poo bear it. Fuck it.
Don't do that.
Don't do that, please.
It'll be funny.
We still want someone who's going to the marathons to basically report for
yeah.
us.
It's
So
44 hours. I
if you're
think, at
going
least.
to a marathon, let us know.
Godspeed, whoever the fuck y'all are.
Poo
Shit.
bear it all the way to the marathon.
Go to @DelphinPod. We're going to do some really cool things for you guys too, leading up to Endgame. We're going to give away some really fun stuff. Lastly, I think we have another podcast called Revenge of the Sequel, which will be coming back soon. But
We'll literally be coming back as soon as we stop talking about Marvel movies because they're going to run out, guys.
during our long break. But
Hiatus.
we are also going to be releasing a brand new wing of Revenge of the Sequel that has to do with sequel news. Revenge of the Sequel news. It's going to be exclusive on Apple News. I don't know if you guys saw the Apple announcement, but we are partners with Apple.
La manzana.
To do that. So you can actually find it's not updated yet, but Revenge of the Sequel.
We're a widget.
We're a widget. Go to Revenge of the Sequel on your Apple News app. Right now, it's just exclusive to Apple. And follow the feed because there will be a lot of cool stuff coming.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty awesome. Yeah.
Soon. Yep.
For sure.
Well, guys, thank you so much. We're almost there.
Did you used to fuck books?
Later.